Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. It is truly a privilege to be here at DealMaker. I have the opportunity to be at a lot of different events all over this nation. It's a beautiful country we live in. And this has got to be one of the best events that I get to consistently go to. And Jim, that is due to you, your integrity, and the way you run and operate things. And so it is truly an honor and a privilege to be here. Some of you have never heard me speak before, so I'm just going to give you a real quick crash course warning. I am not PC, I am not woke, my preferred adjective is smart and good looking, and I am an equal opportunity bipartisan political basher. I give money to Democrats and Republicans, and I call them both out on their nonsense. And I will call real estate investors out on your nonsense, and so fasten your seatbelts, buckle your chin straps tight. We got 45 minutes to cover a lot of stuff, so let's go. All right. Who am I? That really doesn't matter. I've been a lawyer for 33 years, been a real estate investor for 30 years. I'm privileged to be general counsel to some amazing organizations. RealFlow is a company I co-founded back in 2006 with my buddy Greg Clement, still in business today. We are the 800-pound gorilla behind the scenes. If I told you who uses our stuff, you'd be amazed. But anyhow, National REIA is another client of mine. We're privileged to work with them. My good friend Eddie Speed and his company Note School, and National Wealth Builders out of Dayton, Ohio. Why am I telling you all this? I understand what the real estate investing market looks like as a real estate investor, as an attorney, and as an attorney for companies that are in the real estate space. I've had clients of mine make the Inc. 500 list with their real estate investing companies. One client made it 2 years in a row. Accomplishments, real quickly. Changed the law in the state of Ohio 5 times, 4 times litigation, 1 time legislatively. I've changed national housing policy so far only 3 times. We'll talk about that. I am just getting started there. I have co-authored a bill pending before Congress. The companion bill is going to get dropped in the Senate very soon on making it easier to do seller financing, installment sales, taking the restriction from Dodd-Frank from 3 up to 24. That's a fight we're going to win. My friend Andy Barr's got the bill pending right now before Financial Services. 2008, I was an absolute nobody in Northeast Ohio. Just another attorney grinding out stuff, owning rental properties, doing deals. Came up with a better way of doing short sale transactions. That method got taken over by a couple of my friends, Greg Clement being one of them. He marketed it. Everybody else ripped it off, duplicated it, and all of a sudden I became a very popular individual. I'm a board member of the Quest Trust Company. It means I get a chance to talk to Quincy Long in ways that most of you will never have a chance. I get to see what that man is like on a day-to-day basis. That man is a genius, a legend, a man of amazing character, and a man of perseverance who will not quit, despite what all he's been through. What a privilege to be with him. And lastly, like I said, I've got some REI clients that made the Inc. 500 list. Whoop-de-doo, right? Here's what we got to say. I got to say this. This presentation is designed to be accurate and authoritative with regard to the subject matter being covered. It is not legal advice. You hear that, Ricky D? It is not legal advice. This is education, and this is motivation and information. If the services of a professional needed, hire a competent one, go to them. Don't do it just on your own. Jim Ingersoll made me do this next slide. I've been writing an email newsletter for 12 years now. Jim wants everybody in the room to sign up for it, so he made me do a QR code. If you're not on my free email newsletter, please use this QR code, register now. Watson Invested is the name of it. Watson Invested, you can get and register on your smartphones. WatsonInvested.com, Courtney. Thank you for asking. WatsonInvested, all one word, .com. You can go there and register for my free email newsletter. And like I said, it's worth what you pay for it because it's free. Okay? All right. So, we got the preliminaries out of the way, right? So before the lunchtime carb coma begins to affect your bloodstream, you know, as we've got this little bit of an insulin spike and so on going on right now, I want you to just take a moment, take a breath, and think about something that Daniel Clayman was saying earlier. You've got a Class A property. And I want you to imagine you're at this brand new, freshly constructed, ready to go Class A property. You've poured your heart, sweat, tears, blood, and soul into this property, and it's ready to rent. And you're thinking about putting a sign out in the front yard that says for rent. And as you're standing there on that green grass, ready to push that sign into the yard, a beat-up car screeches to a halt in front of that house. Someone gets out of that car, and the aroma of alcohol, pot, and cigarettes suddenly offends your nose. Their clothes reek of that. As they get closer, you see the prison tattoo on their neck of, snitches get stitches. And they say to you, is this property for rent? And you say, yeah. And they say, great, am I the first applicant? And you go, yeah. And they go, great. And they hand you paperwork from a federal housing agency that says that they'll subsidize the rent, and bang, they're your new tenant under the laws that now exist in certain cities and states. You don't get a chance to screen them. You don't get a chance to say no because they've got a violent felony in their recent past. You don't get a chance to sort them regarding employment, education, nothing. You can't even do anything because guess what? Source of income is now a protected class in your community, which means that they are allowed to say, I am permanently poor and you have to give me the house the moment I say I want it if I'm first in line. Now, with that in mind, let me ask you this question. How many of you want to be a landlord? And I'm going to say to you, that's reality. If you've not seen the battle going on right now in Kansas City, Kansas, it is time to wake up. That is the most aggressive, progressive, anti-landlord tenant union in the United States of America with direct connections back to the Biden administration's Renters' Bill of Rights policy. We have begun to engage them in Kansas City, Kansas. We stopped a lot of what they're trying to do. When I say we, it's not just me. Kim Tucker, that runs the RIA in Kansas City, did it. Michelle Winberry did a huge thing. Ron Pickron of Rent Perfect those three were the huge fighters. I helped them a little bit. But I want you to know what's out there. Because, folks, rental freedom is in jeopardy. We are in a war, and you don't even know it. So once they show up, they are the largest grassroots field operation in Missouri. They have knocked on over 23,000 doors, over 55,000 households they've communicated with about their pro-tenant, anti-landlord, it's free, give it to me now agenda. They made over 9,000 phone calls, and they sent over 61,000 text messages. They've trained 277 volunteers into the program. We are behind. They stopped 919 evictions during the pandemic. They shut down the court system in January of 2021 so that no one who was not paying rent could be evicted. They could continue to live for free. Yes, you still had to pay the taxes. Yes, you still had to maintain the property. Yes, you still have to cover the insurance. Yes, you still have to fix things that they break while they're fighting and arguing and not working, but they're not paying you rent. Okay? They have shaped the city council elections in 2019 and 2023 to get their type of legislators on city council who will pass their radical agenda. And you're saying to me, Jeff, that's Kansas City. That's not Richmond. Jeff, that's not Atlanta. That's not Florida. That's in the middle of a red state, on the border of another red state, and they don't care, because if they can win there, they can win anywhere. They've already won Seattle. They've already won Los Angeles. They've already won San Francisco. Are they coming to take your stuff? You better believe it. All right? They blocked a $10.5 million tax incentive for a landlord to build a 385-unit property. 20% would have been affordable housing. They wanted all affordable housing. They have perfected their processes in other cities which are now adopting their nonsense. Now, I got to tip my hat to Nicole Romano for doing a lot of this research for me. They're growing like wildfire, and here's why. It's easy to be the victim, and it's easy to think that somebody owes you a living. But I'm going to stop and talk about this one thing. This one thing just troubles me so deeply. Source of income is not a protected class, but they want the legislatures to act as if it is. They want to encode that into state and federal law. Why? Because they want to trap generations in poverty. When you say source of income is a protected class, you are offending people who are in a protected class because of their age, because of their ethnicity, because of their gender, things they can't change. You can change your financial situation. You can change your income situation. Anna Kelly has been here, spoken before. She grew up in the projects. Now she owns huge apartment complexes. She changed in less than one generation. My favorite uncle grew up dirt-stinking poor, never got past the 8th grade. They shoved him into the Navy as soon as his mom could sign the papers. That man is a decamillionaire over and above, despite the fact he's dyslexic and has a speech impediment. Why? Because of residential real estate. He changed his family trajectory. So when they want to say that source of income is a protected class, that's like saying you can't change who you are. And I'm like, I completely disagree with that. That is underselling and trying to trap people on the plantation of progressive socialism. There, I just said what I really think. They make their members feel seen and heard, like they can't fight this alone. And they have done a very good job at making us feel alone and isolated and frustrated that we can't do anything about it. And boy, do I have news for you. Okay, I've got some great news for you. They put their members in leadership roles. They fill them with purpose. All right, I could go on and on. They show up. That's the first thing you need to know about them is they show up. Adam, glad to finally see you could join us. All right. They go to meetings every week and they canvass for more members. They make phone calls to landlords when needed. They have a clear and consistent training protocol. They are not afraid to be disruptive. They will chain themselves to their doors. They will make literal noise inside of and outside of important meeting rooms, courthouses, and city assemblies. Why? Because they want to disrupt, they want to change, they demand to be heard. My response is we need to start demanding to be heard. And I will explain why in just a moment. But I want to go back to something very foundational and fundamental. Back in 1776, a group of men who later gave everything. Everything. Some of them were murdered for what they signed on this piece of paper. They said that we believe that governments are endowed by their Creator, men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Fundamental to that are personal property rights and the rights to be protected by government. That's my wording. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, not from the whim of the mass. That whenever any form of government becomes so destructive to those ends, i.e. your personal property rights, your freedom to engage in commercial activity, your freedom to do ethical capitalistic investments, it is the right of those people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as shall seem most likely to affect their safety and their happiness. Now that's out of the Declaration of Independence. The men that signed that to a person were financially bankrupted, hunted, and often murdered by their opponents. Let's fast forward. We all sang the Star-Spangled Banner this morning, or I did along with Sharon. I don't know how many of you know how that song came to be. In 1812, an armada of the most powerful combat ships the world had ever seen is sitting outside the harbor in Baltimore, Maryland. And they have sent an ultimatum. We are going to unleash an attack like you've never seen before. And we will keep it up until you take that flag down and concede to our demands. The British Navy was the most powerful, destructive force that had ever sailed on the planet. They came in with their double and triple-decker guns, lined them up in a way to where they could begin an all-night bombardment. That flag never came down because men would hold it in place, giving up their life so that it wouldn't come down, so this country could exist beyond 1812. We've gotten so lazy. We've gotten so entitled. We've gotten so comfortable in our luxury SUVs with our glass boxes and hit a button and Amazon delivers it the next day or sooner. We've gotten so soft. We have no idea what our forefathers went through to get this for us. And we're on the cusp right now. We can just ignore it all, continue to live in our little bubble. Oh, I'm going to be the cockroach that slithers out, get my little meal, and then I'm going to go back and hide. They're coming for you, brother. They're coming for you. It doesn't matter. So let's go with this. I'm going to just do a pop quiz. I've got your attention. Here's the pop quiz, all right? And at the end of this quiz, if you say yes to every one of these questions, I'm going to ask you to stand up. Question number 1, are you registered to vote? Yes. Question number 2, do you know the name of your congressional representative? Question number 3, do you know the names of your 2 U.S. senators? Question number 4, have you reached out to at least 2 of those 3 individuals in the last year regarding housing policy or real estate investing? You have millions of dollars, either currently or in the future, to your name, to your account, and you're not doing anything politically to protect that, to ensure that you can hand it down to your kids and your grandkids? Question number 5, have you ever contributed to any congressional campaigns, either House or Senate? Okay, and last question, which is more important, protecting your right to invest in and own residential real estate, or weekly dropping $75 on pizza and movie tickets? You want to go back into your little bubble? Oh, Jeff, I'm just going to Netflix and rest. Dude, I love what you're doing, Jeff. Man, keep fighting that fight for us in D.C. Just do that for us. Go away. You annoy me. Okay? Let me ask you this. Do you want to rent your properties on a first-come, first-served basis where you can't do any tenant screening? Are you comfortable not being able to screen prospective tenants for violent felonies and drug activities? I mean, I rent to a lot of single working moms. Do you think I want to put a pervert in my properties next door to them? No way. Do you want to be forced to accept Section 8 property payments on all of your properties, including your prime Class A's? I'll do Section 8 in the right neighborhoods with the right properties, but I don't want it everywhere. I want an option. I want the choice. I want the freedom to rent to whom I want, when I want, and I love renting to people that are blue collar, that work hard, that make an honest living. Those are my favorite tenants. So I'm going to say no to all of those, and I want to talk to you about preserving rental freedom. Awareness, engagement, and becoming a hero. I want to talk about what is a housing hero. And I'm going to invite you to become a housing hero. H stands for honest. You have to be an honest housing hero. You have to be an honest provider of housing. E stands for educated. You have to know what you're doing. You have to comply with the fair housing laws. You have to comply with all the other laws that are out there. You have to make sure that you know what your legal responsibilities are as a property housing provider so that it's a safe, habitable, welcoming environment. You need to be responsible. You need to maintain these properties. And I'm going to tell you, I've met landlords that can't pass those 3. They can't. I was in court the other day on behalf of one of these guys. He's on the bubble. I'm almost ready to cut him loose. My assistant says, Jeff, his stuff's junk. Why are we representing him? And I said, Debbie, we're trying to train him. I'm trying to train him. I'm trying to get him to do right. Last, the O stands for owner. A housing hero is an honest, educated, responsible owner. Is there anybody in the room that has an objection to being an honest, educated, responsible owner of rental property? Good. I'm grateful to see that. So let me tell you why and how I got politically engaged. It started as a matter of survival. Remember I told you at the beginning I came up with a new way of doing short sales back in 2008? I created a methodology called an option contract method. Radically changed the way you could do a back-to-back closing with a short sale transaction. After about 3 years, it got to the point where Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae issued an underwriting bulletin discussing what they did not like about it. And their method for fixing it was they encouraged lenders approving short sales to put a deed restriction, not only in the short sale approval letter, but on the deed that was coming as part of the short sale, that that property could not be resold for 180 days. You had to buy it and hold it for 180 days before you could resell it. Well, I felt like they put a target right on my back. So I had to go to work. So we took the fight to FHFA in Washington, D.C., the Federal Housing Finance Agency created by Congress as part of the 2008 housing meltdown. That organization has now become corrupt on the inside out by the progressive woke agenda, the swamp bureaucracy in D.C. It is one of the biggest proponents of the Renters' Bill of Rights right now. So the deed restriction language that started out at 180 days, this implication that that's the only way you could safely do an option on a short sale transaction, we fought and we got it changed to where after 31 days you could resell that property for a profit. Not 180 days, not a half a year, but 1 month later. And after 90 days you could sell it for an unlimited profit. That was the first time. Then, how many of you were here at DealMaker October of 2021? I know you were here, Jim. I was here. My buddy Quincy Long was here. Quincy and I had deep, long conversations about the existential threat facing the self-directed IRA industry. The Build Back Better bill had been introduced by the Biden administration. And by the way, folks, I give money to some Democrats, so please do not think I'm just jamming on Democrats, okay? And that I love Republicans, because some of the Republicans are just as bad. And there's some Democrats I love and I support, and there's some Republicans that I think are just dumb. Dumb, and I can't agree with them. But we had a fight back in September and October of 2021. This literally consumed my life for 7 weeks. My good friend John Heyer stopped everything and created the website handsoffmyira.com. It was his website. I helped him with some of the stuff on there. That website was used to fight the two provisions in the Build Back Better bill that would have decimated the self-directed IRA industry. We got it changed. I'm going to give you a real quick crash course of how we did it. Because people like you, many of you who are in the room, you did what we asked. You did what Jim asked. You did what Quincy asked. You did what John asked. You did what I asked. You went onto a website. You copied some information. You personalized it. You pasted it into the links of the 8 members of Congress we identified, and you hit send. And then you picked up the phone and you called their offices and you told them that you were opposed to those provisions in the Build Back Better bill. And so on October, I think it was 21st of 2021, I was in Washington, D.C. having key meetings because of the relationships that I have, where I met with 3 different Democrat members of Congress, because we only needed to flip 3, and then we'd have 3 to join the Republicans, and we could stop the bill. I met with Henry Cuellar the morning after Quincy Long tuned him up. Henry is a good friend of mine. I'm going to see him later this month. Henry was like immediately, we're not voting for this. We're going to support you. I then went to go see my friend Vicente Gonzalez. Vicente looked at me and he said, are you telling me that this housing bill that you and I have been working on for 2 years will be gutted if this goes through? And I go, yep. He said, if I get my friend Josh Gottheimer, chair of a committee, to pull those paragraphs out of that bill, will you tell me that all of these phone calls and all of these letters will stop? And I said, Vicente, they'll stop if it comes out. The next day, it was out. A week later, Vicente Gonzalez is in Dallas, Texas, at an event that many of you were at, where we had him on stage and we've got him on video, and he was telling the audience at Note Expo, this is how you effectively advocate. He said, if I hear from 5 people in my district about a specific issue, I want to know what's going on. He says, I will stop what I'm doing and ask my staff to figure out why we've got 5 or more phone calls on one topic. I filed that one away. I'm going to see Vicente again in a few weeks. He's in a whale of a fight in his district, and he's being challenged by a really good candidate, and I don't know what to tell you on that one except May the best candidate win in that one. That's a whale of a fight. I went down to San Antonio, Texas, and knocked on doors for Henry Cuellar. Then later on, I went to Laredo, Texas, and I knocked on more doors for Henry Cuellar. Why? Because he was in a primary runoff race, being challenged by an extreme progressive. And Henry needed to win. I knocked on more doors than he won the runoff race by. He won his runoff race by 300 and some odd votes, beating Jessica Cisneros by 300 votes in a runoff primary. That's how we keep good people in Congress. And I'm going to put it to you this way. If you stay silent in this war between good and evil, your life might be easier, but your children's lives won't be. Now you say, okay, Jeff, that's great on the national level, but how else does it work? Well, some of you know Lindsey Jensen. Lindsey took and duplicated the process in Colorado Springs, Colorado, over school scheduling issues. The former administration of the Colorado Springs public school system did not care about parents' work schedules. They set things up to where it was very convenient for them regarding stop and start times, busing, and so on. Lindsey copied the format of the website, Hands Off My IRA, and in her local school district got enough parents engaged and involved that they changed the schedule, they changed who sits on the school board, and they fired the bad superintendent, and now they have a great superintendent in there. That's at the city level. This works whether it's at the federal level or the city level. You're going to say, well, Jeff, but okay, that's just two. How about another one? How many of you remember this disastrous idea called the CDC eviction moratorium because of COVID? When it expired, when it was ready to expire by legislation, a bill was introduced in the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. to extend it. National RIA, with its 40-some thousand members across 45 states, used a tool called Voter Voice and pounded the email boxes of their members of Congress saying, do not extend, do not extend, do not extend. You know what those members of Congress did? They went on a holiday recess because they were hearing too much from too many landlords saying, don't do this, you're bankrupting us. What happened? They didn't legislatively extend it. So the administration extended it by an administrative executive order. What happened? That case got challenged all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, Joe Biden, you can't do it. You're out. Why? Because individual landlords put their voices together using some technology, and they got after it. All right? Now, if trouble must come, let it come in my time, so that my kids, and for me, my grandkids, can live in peace. Little story. October of last year, after months of hard work, we closed on a large apartment building in 153 units in Athens, Ohio. And I'm at that day we closed, I'm home in Ohio, and I'm hanging out with my daughter, her husband, and my two little grandkids. And I know the strategy for that building. It's going to be a long-term buy and hold, and someday my granddaughters are going to have cash flow coming off of that property. And I'm looking at these two little girls, and I'm going, you've got something that I never had. You're going to be able to live and give in ways that so few people will because of what I'm doing for you. They have no clue. They're innocent. They don't know. That's fine. But I want them to have something. I don't know anybody in this room that is saying, Jeff, I'm doing it all for me, and I'm going to spend every dime of it, and my kids and my grandkids get nothing. No, we're all about creating legacies. We're all about paying attention to what Mary Hart said about how we can intentionally get those assets, get those legacies down to the next generations. So the latest fight Kansas City, Kansas, January 2024. Hey, that was just a little over a month ago. The Kansas City Tenants Union wanted to shove through 4 pieces. They wanted source of income as a protected class. They got that. They wanted no background screening. We stopped that. They wanted rent control. We stopped that. And then they wanted one other thing, and my brain just cramped, and I can't remember what it was, and we stopped that as well. Now, some of you in the room probably did what I asked you to do, because in a very disorganized manner, I said, here's what we've got. We found the email addresses, and that was some doing. We found the email addresses of all the members of the city council in Kansas City, Kansas, and then we bombarded them with emails about opposing this. Now, how we did it was pretty simple. I wrote the main copy. I shared it with everybody that wanted to do it. I gave them the email lists. So what did you have to do? You had to click on and open and read an email. Is that hard to do? You then had to copy the language I suggested. You then had to paste it and personalize it. That's really hard to do. There's 2 things right there. You got to paste it and personalize it. But do you know your own name? Do you know where you live? Do you know your business name? And then the real hard part. You got to hit send. Okay? You got to hit send. That's how we stopped it. So you're saying, okay, Jeff, I think I know where you're going. But I want to cover this. Why should you be a housing hero? You want to stand for freedom? The freedom to be able to rent to who you want, when you want? The freedom to be able to do what I've done in the past. You look a struggling single mom in the face and you say, you know what? Forget about the rent you owe me right now. Here's money for groceries. I don't care that your husband just left. I'm going to help you. Nicole Romano found that. Put that up again so I can see. Perfect. Thank you. Nicole Romano found where I did that many years ago. You want to protect your legacy, and you want to pay it forward, okay? And it's just good business. It's just good business to be an honest, educated, responsible owner. So what does a housing hero do? They join with others to email, call, and write various elected officials, members of Congress, state legislators, and city council members. Now, I'm going to ask you to pay attention to me real carefully for 1 second. I will never ask you to send snail mail letters to anybody in Washington, D.C., because it doesn't work because of the way they process mail in Washington, D.C. I will ask you to send phone calls, I will ask you to send emails, and I will ask you to send occasionally faxes. But they track off of phone calls and emails. I've been in multiple congressional offices when the phones are ringing and they're literally keeping a tally sheet of the for and against, the for and against. They want to know 2 things. Where in the district do you live, and are you for or against it? I've been there through some of the biggest votes in the last 5 years. I've stood in those offices, okay? You're going to be able, if you're a housing hero, you want to be able to receive emails and text messages. Is there anybody in the room that will not want to receive an email or a text message? You don't know how to do it? You never want to see one? Okay. You're going to have to open the messages from Rental Freedom. Just don't delete it. You're going to have to open it and read it. Then you're going to have to do that arduous task of copy, paste, personalize, and send. I'm trying to use a little humor here, okay? Just trying to use just a little bit of humor. I mean, copy, paste, personalize, and send. I think we can all do that, right? I type with 2 fingers, and I can still do it. All right? So more about what a housing hero does. They join with others to email, call, and write various elected officials. You can do all of this while still in your pajamas at home. How is that for effective political advocacy? From the comfort of your own home, still in your comfy pajamas with your fuzzy slippers, sipping your hot coffee, your hot cocoa, you can do all of this at home. Is that possible? Great. Now here's what won't happen if you become a housing hero. Your information will not be sold, swapped, shared, published, or whatever. No way. You will not be bombarded with things to do every week. You will not be bombarded with things to do every week. And you won't need to go to D.C. or your state capital unless you really want to. Now, if you want to, there's times I go to D.C., and if you want to be there, be happy to have you there. But there's a playbook you got to follow. We don't do Lone Rangers. We don't do wildcatting. We have a specific playbook that we follow. So what if you don't care? You're like, Jeff, man, you're a great speaker, but I really don't care. Then why are you here? Why are you here? I mean, is this just some sort of exercise in intellectual stimulation? You don't plan on doing anything with real estate? Okay. Because if preserving economic liberty, if building wealth through real estate really doesn't matter to you, then I'm puzzled why you're here. Okay? So let's talk about how you can become a housing hero. This is going to be a little tricky. You do it by using your phone and scanning that QR code. That's going to take you to a page where you enter your name, your email address, and your phone number. That information will be kept secure on one of my servers. It will not be shared. You will not get it sold. It will not be swapped. Nothing. Okay? No way, no how. Now, this is how you become a housing hero. Now, once you do this, and I presume some of you will do this, then I'm going to ask you to find either Nicole or Sharon or Rachel and show them on your phone that you've done this. And they're going to give you a sticker that you can wear saying, I'm a hero. I'm going to use just a little bit of peer pressure on y'all, okay? These are really nice stickers. Nicole designed them, but it says, I'm a hero. Now, why am I doing this? It's really simple. So if we don't stand up for our liberties, they're going to be taken away from us. If we don't stand up for it, they're going to just be stolen from us. In Washington, D.C., we have a statement. If you don't have a seat at the table, you are what's on the table getting carved up. And they have been making rules and policy for decades that are anti-small business, anti-investor, anti-landlord, and they think that you're rich and you can afford it, and they've decided to psychologically convince you that you're alone, you're outnumbered, it doesn't really matter, it's going to happen anyhow, it's inevitable, just put up with it. To which I have to say, no. Because I will tell you from my own experience, and I've shared with you not one, not two, but 4 different stories of how individuals can just from the comfort of their own home, by making phone calls or sending emails, can change national housing policy. We've stopped the Build Back Better stuff. We stopped the reinstatement of the mortgage of the eviction moratorium. We've done it at state levels. We've done it at city levels. We've done it at the federal level. This strategy works. Now, I wish I could tell you that this is all mine and only mine, and I've done this all by myself. No, I've only spent about $80,000 in the last 10 years in political advocacy, time, travel, donations, etc. But I've had the opportunity to now work with some of the best lobbyists in Washington, D.C. You probably see him at least once a month on Fox News. Sometimes he's on other channels as well. He's a brilliant strategist, and this is the guy that teaches me how to do this. Now, what am I ultimately going to be doing? I'm going to be making sure that he's on retainer, because he works for the Seller Finance Coalition right now. He's also going to be working with my own PAC, Real Estate Note Investors United, to make sure that we have a seat at the housing policy table. And Matt said something to me, and I know I'm running out of time. His name's Matt Keelan. He said something to me as we were sitting there one day in D.C. when I was doing these meetings in October of 21, trying to kill the Build Back Better bill. He looked at me and he says, Jeff, did you notice that in that huge monstrosity, there wasn't a single thing anti-seller financing? And I go, yeah, I did notice that. And he says, you know why? I go, Matt, tell me why. He says, because we've been doing this long enough that we have a seat at the table. They know they can't change seller financing without coming through us. So they'll go around. They won't even try. So they're going to go after the money. So they were trying to go after the IRA money in order to draw away all the liquidity that we need to use to do real estate investing. So I'm going to take a moment and leave this up on the screen, and I'm going to wrap up with saying this, because I know I'm just about out of time. I'm going to wrap up with saying two things. For everyone that has already done this, registered to be a housing hero, thank you very, very much. For those of you that have yet to do it, what are you waiting for? It's not going to cost you any money. It's going to make you available to stand up for your own rights, your own liberty, and your own freedom. Now, if you're like, Jeff, I just don't care. God bless. Don't bother me again. Just, I'm sorry. I only have time to work with the people that care about what they're doing. I only have time to people who want to work and protect their freedom so that they can hand it down to somebody else. Because once we lose this, we'll never get it back. Once we lose the right to control our own assets, we won't ever get it back. Jim, I'm just about done, so thank you for coming up here. I want to encourage you to do two things. Register to be a housing hero, and then take time out of your busy schedule and pray for those that are fighting on your behalf in Washington, D.C. Pray for my friend Matt Keelan. He's there every day fighting for people to do the right thing. Pray for people like Eddie Speed that have been running the Seller Finance Coalition for almost 10 years now. Say a prayer for me. Appreciate it. With that, Jim, I'm done.